Ah, yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Evolution of Movies show. I'm Jack Farmer, and I'm joined, as always, by Andy Rossi. Andy Rossi, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Wonderful.
You ready to talk about, let's not give it away, even though it's in the title. You ready to talk about one of the biggest movies of the 90s?
I am.
Before we do, we got to bring in our special guest, a special friend of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, she's coming in hot off of co-starring with Michael Pena in Midlake's song Bethel Woods music video. Let's hear it wherever you're sitting or standing or listening. Clap along with Danielle Dalacco. Danny, how you doing?
Bow, 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 bow. I'm great. I'm fantastic.
Is that your own theme song you created right there?
I made my own theme song for the show. Can you guys put that in? I sent you guys music.
Do we have the rights to that sound?
No.
Bom, bom, bom.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
So you just got done being in a music video, which is so cool. But I like to talk about stuff that I'm involved in. We both had a part in Dead Body. Your part was much bigger than mine. I was in it for one line. You had
remember you at all.
I was in one scene with Clean Larry for 5 seconds, but
memorable scene.
Talk about that.
That's the most important part of the whole movie. No, but you have one of my favorite lines. I actually imitate you all the time. You don't know this yet, but whenever I have a bad day, I always say, "I've had a day." But tell us a little bit about this music video you just finished working on.
Oh, it was really cool. So their album just came out maybe like a month or two ago. For the Sake of Bethel Woods is the album, and it's actually like serendipitously enough like one of like my like really like good bands that I like to listen to a lot. Like I love this band, and they have had like a big hiatus, like I think 7 years, and just through like life, like I like the director like recently like saw me, like thought I'd be right for something, pitched me to the production team, and then it worked out, and it was like a period piece. Mm-hmm. So it was just like so cool to be in all this like costuming and like 60s kind of vibe, and just work with like really amazing people and get to meet the band, who is like beyond amazing. And we shot in Denton, Texas, which is a really cool area of Texas. And then I got to work with Michael Pena, who was like a masterclass of acting. He was just like, would tell me tips that Helen Mirren told him, or like when he was working with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
No big deal.
Yeah, I was like, oh, no big deal. I'd be like, amazing.
That it's awesome, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad that you're on the show, is because as I always say, you and Andy, you know about making movies. I just watch them and go, I like it or I don't like it. But you mentioned the period piece. I don't usually do this. I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. Speaking of period pieces, what the heck is with you and your internet browsers? Why are you still in 1995?
Let's talk about how this show is in 1995. For repeating the joke that I led with.
Right.
I'm on Safari. I don't know if you know about Apple, the leaders of technology. But yeah, I didn't know that this StreamYard was going to not work on Safari. And you guys also didn't mention that.
Leaders of technology. Nothing works with it, but leaders of technology. Get on the Chrome train.
Listen, if this link gives me a virus, I'm telling you, Farmer. Okay.
No. That's Andy's department. Let's talk about the show, though.
We'll send you some swag.
This is the Evolution of Movies show. And for people who haven't seen it yet, what we do is we watch a movie and then we talk about it like it's a book club, but with movies. But we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always watch a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So we started in 1980, went to 1981, 1982. Now we're all the way up to 1993, a time when movie theaters were filled with hits like Demolition Man, Tombstone, and of course, Son-in-Law. But we aren't talking about those. We're talking about Jurassic Park, a movie IMDb describes as a pragmatic paleontologist. I don't know. Paleontologist touring an almost complete theme park on an island in Central America is tasked with protecting a couple of kids after a power failure causes the park's cloned dinosaurs to run loose. This is possibly the movie of the 90s, I think. But before we get into the details, and Danielle, I always want you to get to the last overall thoughts. I always like to have us play a little game, and that's where I'm going to see if Andy can guess the Rotten Tomatoes score, and then you're going to guess if you think the actual score is going to be higher or lower than his prediction.
Okay.
So, Andy, again, I think this might be movie of the 90s, but what do you think Rotten Tomatoes says?
Yeah, this was a good one. I remember when this came out, I was super psyched. It was like in my prime dinosaur liking age. So I probably would have given it like 100. I'm going to go, it had to have done well though. I'm going to go like 91.
91. That's pretty high.
I think it was like the movie, if I remember correctly. Like, I think box office, like everything, and then look at like how many, like, I think it came out, at least 3 others came out. So I'm going to say it was higher than that.
Still coming out. There's a new one coming out this year.
This year, yeah.
Let them hold up. I have to be real.
But it's nothing's going to hold up to the original. The actual score is 92%. So just barely about as close as you can get. 92%.
Good, Andy.
Okay.
The only movies I think that beat it that we've reviewed so far are Mad Max Fury Road at 97%, Raiders of the Lost Ark at 95%, and I think Ghostbusters was at 93%.
I think Get Out was high
Really?
too.
Yeah, I think
I recently rewatched Ghostbusters, and then I rewatched this, obviously, and this blows that out of the water. Like, I actually thought Ghostbusters was going to be a better movie.
It was 84 though, so.
Yeah, that's what's fun about rewatching some of these movies is the way you remember them. You go back and sometimes you're like, huh, and other times like, this is amazing.
It's ridiculous. Danielle, we reviewed our first movie of the year of this year was Flash Gordon, which is just a complete train wreck. And it got like a 72 or something. So it's like, it's all relative. It's all the year it came out.
It beat the Goonies. So
Never heard of this.
Oh, you should definitely see it and then listen to our show.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon, he literally.
What are you guys going to do when you run out of movies? What if?
I don't think that can happen.
But are you going to catch up? Like, you just do one movie each year?
We catch up, and then it'll be the end of the year, and we'll start a new season the following year.
Yeah.
Is this it?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And this Goonies?
Yes,
Somehow.
It's about a guy who literally it's described as a guy who uses the power of American football to fight the universe.
I really wish I would have been on this one just to talk about this guy's eyebrows in this photo.
No, we'll have you back. We'll find some other winners.
Tell you, you watch that movie, you won't have time to get to the eyebrows when you talk about the things you discussed in that movie. But let's talk about Jurassic Park. Now, Dan, I'm sure you've seen this movie before, but what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
Okay, let me tell you something that I brought up. Ba, 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 ba. So I thought it was going to start with that song, and it doesn't. It starts with a bunch of construction workers, and one of which is chewing gum, and there's an extreme close-up of this one construction worker like... And then I wonder, I'm like, did that get him the close up, or was Spielberg like, one of you needs to be chewing gum? And that's
like a good choice. He was trying to stand out.
Yeah.
But I remember it being good. I remember seeing it later in life because the first time I was supposed to see it, we were having like a sleepover at my cousin's house, and I was the baby. So they all went into my aunt and uncle's room to watch the movie. And I was like 3 or 4. And I was like, yeah, too scary for me. So I ended up listening to it and eating chips and dip in the kitchen with my aunt and talking about life.
Wow.
At four, you were talking life with your aunt.
What's going on?
Talking about stocks and bonds.
But you're right. It is almost like one of those Mandela effects things where I feel like that, yeah, that definitely started the movie, but it didn't really start the movie. Going back and watching.
No.
But let's get into the start of the movie. But before we get into the start, I do always like to take a quick second to say thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or however you consume your podcast. Thank you. Please hit us with that like, follow, share, subscribe, 5-star reviews. You know, we got it. It's a podcast. You got to say all that stuff.
Yeah.
You got to put it in there. If enough of you do, maybe I can also start throwing in a bunch of ads like MeUndies or Manscaped or whatever it is that they like to sell on these things. Let's get into the movie, though. In a jungle, a creature is delivered in a cage, and it's pretty dangerous, I reckon, because it's surrounded by men with weapons. It pulls one of them into the cage with little effort, even as electrical charges are blasted inside. "Shoot her," the leader cries, but it's no use. Later, a whiny suit type is pulled up to a camp full of archaeologists, and this whiny suit guy is worried about the safety of the park, but as says this, a mosquito frozen in tree sap is removed from the ground. Danny, this is the opening scenes of this movie. Tell us about the world that we are about to live in and the people that are a part of it.
I'm going to tell you one thing first. I wouldn't be a good book club member because this is the stuff I get stuck on. In the scene, we got to talk about these scenes. A guy is pulled up, but there is a shot of a pond, and he is pulled by a rope on a raft, wearing a full suit and a briefcase. It is the most ridiculous thing. And also, there's a lot of close-ups with the raptor scene in the cage of guys and yellow teeth. I feel like everybody had yellow teeth in the 90s. I don't know if it was smoking, the lack of Crest White strips, but everyone had the yellow teeth.
They're working on an island somewhere. They don't got time to brush their teeth.
But it is, yeah, it's super, the world is like super like, oh no, like I want to say like tribal and like, I don't know. And like, it's actually very like, I could definitely see how this is a Spielberg movie. Obviously it is, because I see so much correlation with Jaws as like almost like I didn't go into it. I was like, oh yeah, Jurassic Park, dinosaurs. It is so scary. Like as I was watching it, I was like, I have anxiety. Like this is actually, I don't know how kids watch this because it's actually terrifying. And it's that same kind of terror that he brought from Jaws as well.
It's interesting you say that, and Andy, I want to get your thoughts on this because when I was watching this, the whole time I was thinking, I see so many echoes of Raiders of the Lost Ark in this movie. But now that you mentioned Jaws, I see the Jaws also. Andy, I want to ask you this guy. I just called him the whiny suit guy. I never remembered his name.
The lawyer, I think.
Yeah,
the lawyer.
Something with
the blood-sucking lawyer.
Blood-sucking lawyer. Now, there's later in the movie, I remember him, but at this point, I was like, I don't remember this guy. What's he doing? There's a moment later that I think we all remember very clearly that I go, oh, he's that guy.
Which we'll get to it. And I agree with Danielle. Like the beginning, I was waiting for, I love the Jurassic Park theme. I was waiting for that. I thought it like cuts in and then you see Jurassic Park. Like I thought it was pretty quick, but yeah, it is kind of like, it's almost like a different movie in the beginning. You're like, what is all this? And it is, I would agree. It's pretty scary. This guy's like screaming and like, kind of like Jaws, you don't really like, it's not gory, but you definitely like, it's very suspenseful. You like see him getting pulled and everybody's like prodding him. And I don't know, from the get-go, I was team dinosaur against the humans. They're trying to like cattle prod him and all this. I'm like, he's a dinosaur. What do you expect him to do?
It's the brilliance of Spielberg too, though, where you don't get to see the dinosaur. You don't get to know what it looks like or what it is. And to your point about it not being bloody, you have to fill it in yourself. You have to feel, and that makes it so terrifying because you're right. As a kid, it's like dark and they're shooting it and it's not doing anything. And the guy's still getting pulled in.
It makes it worse.
And it
makes it so much worse that you don't see it, I think, because you hear it. You hear the screams, you hear the terror. And I think that's so much more jarring that you don't know what it looks like or what the blood, like what he's actually doing. So you're like, think about it. Like maybe like you could watch something and it's bloody and like maybe it'll scare the shit out of me, but it's not going to scare the shit out of you. But when you're using every single person's imaginations, that's like insane. And it's such like a powerful tactic.
Yeah. And it's one last thing before we move on is I want to mention, and Andy, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, as the we talked about the lawyer, how I forgot who he was, but the guy that he's talking to that holds up the sap with the mosquito, I remember him clearly, and I thought he was a big part of this movie, but that's the only scene he's in. Was I the only one that did that?
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this guy never comes back.
Yeah, kind of a lot of that happened for me. We'll get to it, but I thought different characters lasted a little longer than others and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I thought that when he found the sap, when I was like, the way I had remembered my Mandela effect was that was the beginning. And then they start making the dinosaurs, but they were already making the dinosaurs because the park was already being made. Like, I was like, so what's the significance of this? Like, is this just a different strain of dino? Like, they never said also what the significance of that particular mosquito was. Was it just more clones? But I thought they already had the clones.
Right.
Yeah. I assumed it just bit a dinosaur.
Yes. Yeah. It was that was a very Mandela effect thing for me. But as we move on, we go to another dig and they're using computers to look at a skeleton, and we get told that a raptor is closer to a bird than a reptile. And then Dr. Grant tells some poor kid that raptors will cut your junk and eat you alive. After a grand entrance in a helicopter, John Hammond pops the champagne with Dr. Grant, and Hammond tells him that he wants them to come to the park to sign off on it. And they say, sure. Meanwhile, in San Jose, a secret agent is meeting with Newman, and you can't convince me his name is anything other than Newman. And they are plotting to steal the embryos from the park. Newman implies he does it because he's not getting paid enough by Hammond. Also, meanwhile, on the helicopter, Jeff Goldblum is looking like a superstar, chatting up the doctors about chaos theory. And we get the whole gang together as the whiny suit guy reminds us that they have 48 hours to sign off on the park. And they make their first stop, getting their first look at the quote unquote attractions. And we get the line, welcome to Jurassic Park. Danny, this is the kind of the introduce the characters scene or part of the movie, and sort of the getting them to the dance where we see all these different characters and their journey to getting there. How did you feel about this introduction and the characters that we're going to be hanging with?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say the scene with the paleontologists, and they're all like on their, first of all, this made me want to be a paleontologist. I remember all this digging and being like, that looks like so much fun. But now rewatching it, I don't know if you guys realize this or not. Did you notice that every single paleontologist is wearing some sort of plaid?
Yeah, I just noticed they all had like boots.
They all had the same boots. So much plaid happening. You're like, you know what?
The
plaid.
90s.
What am I going to put you in? Plaid. You work in the dirt? Plaid.
I was real quick to that point. I was actually wondering. I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I was wondering, is that how they're supposed to look, or is that what I think they're supposed to look like because of this movie?
I think it's the latter.
Like, they've changed my vision, because now if I made one, if I was to like design one, that's how I would design it. But now I'm wondering, is it just because this movie did that to me?
This is a little bit of an oversight just visually, because like you don't see like, okay, some denim, some khaki. It was just like plaid. Like they're all there, plaid. But I will say, a lot of heavy hitters in this movie. I completely forgot how many. Like, I remembered Laura Dern, but then I was like, oh my God, Jeff Goldblum. And then later we'll talk about the other heavy hitter who graces our presence in the Newman, and all of these amazing actors in this film. And then it's Sam Neill, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He has like again, why, like, this is not a kid's movie, has a horrific monologue.
Yes.
Child, and his prop is a raptor claw, and like describing how it's going to like brutally cut open his intestines.
Poor kid. He's like, it looks more like a turkey to me. He's like, oh yeah? You think so, kid?
You know what's funny?
Like,
actually, I took astronomy in college, and the turkey, the chicken and the ostrich are direct descendants of the velociraptor. So he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah, he wasn't even wrong. He gave him a hard time. The kid's gonna be like, "I'll never say it again." And they're like,
next time I
you were right.
Next time I see a turkey, I'm like, that thing's gonna cut my guts open and eat me alive. Andy, I want to ask you, speaking of these guys that they're all dressed in plaid, how come it feels like everyone working on dinosaurs doesn't know anything about them or care about them? This movie. Everyone around Sam Neill, Dr. Grant in this movie, it seems like they could not care less about dinosaurs, yet they're on this very high value site working on dinosaurs.
Yeah, and I think Sam Neill, they really tried to make him look kind of like a poor man's Indiana Jones. I think is just like, oh, we have this leftover Indiana Jones attire. You want to throw that on?
They're like, just put some plaid over it.
But, I mean, Jeff Goldblum has got the best attire in the movie. He's just he got like a leather jacket. He's like the Fonz.
Yeah. And he has no attire. Like the first half of the movie, he's in like this sexy like leather black, and then he's shirtless for the rest.
Shirtless later, like posing.
He's like, I'm sick. Like,
I was going to ask you guys, was Jeff Goldblum a heartthrob back in the day?
So charming. He's like so charismatic, and I've actually seen him like somewhat recently. He's just one of those people who has this like infectious energy. He will like at 90 still be charming and charismatic and get whoever he wants because he's just Jeff Goldblum.
But was Laura Dern not with Sam Neill? Like I felt like they were together, and then like Goldblum's like, meh, I'm just gonna dive right in. But then I think maybe they weren't.
No, because he has that line. I'm always looking for the next Mrs. Malcolm.
Yeah,
and he has all these ex-wives and kids.
He says, "Are you married occasionally?"
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was definitely. I guess the reason I was asking about him is I don't know. He definitely is charming, but again, I don't know if that's just now because I know he's Jeff Goldblum and I feel that way, or if like before everyone knew who he was, if that was the presentation. But yeah, he looked like a rock star magician in this movie. Something I wanted to bring up here, and we've kind of alluded to it a few times, but I think this is a good time to just talk about it more specifically, is orchestra scores in the 90s were just in God mode during this. I feel like every orchestra score from the 90s just is incredible, with this one being obviously one of the top ones. Andy, I know you're a big music guy. Does any other decade hold up as far as orchestra scores to the 90s?
I mean, yeah, you got John Williams here, who's like the best. So
I guess 80s is pretty close too.
Yeah, I think the 90s, I mean, it could have just been my age, but I think that was the best time for movies, in my opinion.
I was thinking like even like Rudy, and all those, like, were just so good. But I'm sure there's someone saying, what about Star Wars? And I'm like, that's true. What about Raiders? Yeah, that's true.
Jaws.
And finally, I just want to say this special effects in this movie, they hold up really well. Like, I was blown away by the fact this is a 30-year-old movie. And I was like, these look pretty darn good even now. Like, I mean, if it came out as a Marvel movie, I'd go, oh, these are kind of bad. But I feel like if this level of special effect came out in a TV show, I wouldn't question it. Like, it's still pretty good.
Yeah. The thing that made me laugh, though, is when I guess I'm going a little far up here, but when they first see the Brachiosaurus, like they're seeing a dinosaur and it looks great, but they just jump out of the car. And I'm like, it's still a dinosaur.
I know. I had the same reaction.
Let me go check that out.
Like, wait, let me go touch it. And I'm like, just because I was literally thinking the same thing, because I'm like, just because it's an herbivore doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to eat you.
Yeah, or stomp on you. I wouldn't go run out to go check out an elephant. Like, hey, look, there's an elephant running around. Let me just get as close as possible.
I get worried if a dog is going to bite me. But as we move on, we get to what has to be the most boring part of the park as they watch a video explaining the science of how Hammond was able to get dinosaur blood.
I do too, actually. There's such weird voiceovers.
I was just thinking, like,
in those cartoons are so weird.
Could you imagine?
Howdy, I'm DNA.
You go to this place to go see real life dinosaurs, and like, cool, let's watch this little video explaining science. I'm like, this sucks. But it explains how Hammond was able to get dinosaur blood from mosquitoes, and they continue to explain putting the DNA into ostrich eggs and so on, We're told that all the dinosaurs are female, so they can't breed, but Goldblum says life will find a way before Dr. Grant shows great concern over raptors being bred. They watch a cow get fed to one of the dinosaurs, and the safari leader, as I call him, tells us the raptors are extremely intelligent. Later at a meeting, Goldblum is pretty crabby about them cloning dinosaurs, and we get the great line, "You were so busy asking if you could instead of asking if you should." And suddenly everyone is pretty scared of what they're seeing. But worse than any dinosaur is Tim, the little kid that won't shut up. They start the ride. They start their ride to see the dinosaurs like the T-Rex and the acid spitter, but only see a Tom Brady, a goat. But the problem is that Samuel L. Jackson is telling us, that there's a lot of glitches. The doctors find a down triceratops and figure out it's sick because it's eating the wrong plants after seeing a big pile of poop. This trip ends as a storm comes rolling in. Danny, I want to ask you, the video we talked about so much here. It talks about how they get the blood using quote unquote sophisticated techniques. But then the video kind of just shows them drill into the sap and stick a needle in a mosquito's butt. Do you feel like movies like this need to explain the science, or are you just like, I get it, let's see dinosaurs? I
think it was very well handled because, again, what was the rating on this? PG-13? Do we know?
PG-13, I believe.
So, and as we know, it was dinosaurs. So, like, you couldn't keep kids from seeing it. And adults. So, like, we needed, like, a very short and sweet and well animated, because it was animation, expository moment. So we're all on the same page. And then, spoiler alert, we've all seen Jurassic Park. It doesn't matter. We needed just, like, a little sprinkling of foreshadowing, because then, like the clue of, oh, they're using toads, and it's kind of like a throwaway, but later it comes back when actually frogs are like the one like species you shouldn't use their like same likeness, because they can actually change their sex organs. So it was like, oh, this was like such an, like, I think it was so well written in that fact, in that way, because you're like setting up for something later, but you're not. It's kind of like everything's happening so fast that you don't even really notice it. I think you do need that little bit of explanation. I think they do it in a really good way.
I thought it's funny how they kept leaving the ride too. Like they just literally were just like, get out of here. And then later in the car, they're like, we're out of here. And then when the baby dinosaur is born, it's like imprinting on Hammond. And I was kind of thinking later, I'm like, if he's like in charge of all these dinosaurs, why didn't they send him out? Because if he's like, it's me, and they would just like,
there was going to be a moment of that, and I was like, maybe there's going to be a moment of that, and I was so surprised that there wasn't.
Yeah, he just like stayed behind. It's like, no, it's you. I
also remember him getting eaten by a dinosaur, which also doesn't happen.
Well, I thought Newman got eaten off the toilet, so.
No,
I remembered his exit.
Yes. No, that I remembered his. The thing with him seeing the egg, though, actually made me a little crabby, because they get out of the ride, like you said. He's like, hey, it's a ride, you can't leave. And then they go into the room as the egg is hatching. He's like, oh yeah, I'm here for all the hatching. He's like, you were gonna miss it if you stayed on the ride. What do you mean you're here for all the hatching?
He was like, why didn't you tell me? But I do. To your point, I was like, none of you guys were sterilized. Like, this is like a scientific area. Like, and you can just like walk into it. Like, there's no like clearance. And this is like something a ride goes through. And also, I've had a reptile. I had a
bearded
turtle.
Dragon. Oh.
Reptiles are cold-blooded. They do not like, maybe they imprint, but like alligators eat their babies. Like, they don't have any sort of like love for like another species, or like even their own. Like, they're like the one like species that doesn't like really have that like warmness to them of like, oh, let me cuddle with this dinosaur real quick. Like, they're gonna eat you. It's just survival.
I would have lost it though if at some point in the movie the T-Rex looked at Hammond and goes, Dada. I would have loved. I don't care if it would have ruined the movie. I would have loved it. I want to say, Eddie, I want to get your thoughts on these two things real quick. Is the car that drives itself and touchscreens in 93, wildly ahead of its time, but actually incredibly accurate to how things are. But also, Raptors during this time had a huge hit in popularity, much like the Beverly Hills Chihuahua helped Chihuahuas.
I mean, yeah, you had electric cars, and he was already talking about not polluting. And then, the Raptors turned into an NBA team. I mean, the Toronto Raptors.
Who didn't love Raptors after this time? I thought they were like the coolest dinosaurs in the world.
Are you out of your mind? They were the worst.
They were
literally the worst in the whole movie.
Not the baby one. He's cute.
I would totally be the one that goes, let's clone more Raptors.
I first of all was like, how, like, why? First of all, why did they clone a T-Rex and why did they clone Raptors? Like, okay, money, maybe, sure.
Yeah.
But it was like, these are the two species of dinosaur you definitely should not have brought back.
Yeah, start off with the Brontosaurus and like the
nice ones.
The Triceratops, start off with the nice ones, and then see how it goes.
And in general, to what you guys alluded to before, they interact with the dinosaurs in a way like they know how these things are going to act. Everything you know about them is really just a theory. Like, oh, this person, these are whatever kind of dinosaurs. You've never actually met one. You don't
Especially,
know.
Like I said, he jumps off the car or off the Jeep and he's like, let me go check out these Brachiosauruses. It's like, you don't really know what they're going to do.
Yeah, you've never seen one. They might be like, oh, it also eats a little bit of meat. I don't know. Like, you've never seen one before.
And then Laura Dern is like, wait, I have to help heal this one. And I believe that one is like a descendant, like the rhinoceros is a descendant of that one, which is like a very aggressive animal. But then she thinks it's because of the wrong plants, but it's not. And then it's never revisited again.
And the guy, the veterinarian, just stands there. Like, I'm like, is he just standing there watching this poor thing get sick? It's like, it's sick. I don't know. Sick.
Yeah. And
I've tried everything.
And the way they're able to like listen to its stomach, like, oh, it must be because it ate the wrong berries. How do you know? You've literally never seen a Triceratops in your life. How do you know this stuff? I thought
it was going to be, honestly, I was like, oh, 6 weeks. Like, oh, it has something to do with her ovulation or like, this is what's going to show that she's pregnant or something. But I don't think the two were ever connected. And I'm also wondering like what the point of having that scene in the movie.
See that giant thing of poop.
I
a line where he's like, Jeff Goldblum's like, that's a lot of shit.
But he does it again. Jeff Gold, like almost sexy, the way he's standing with his shirt unbuttoned to his like belly button.
Oh, he's sexy.
He's
the whole
going
time.
more and more throughout the movie.
Yeah, the one scene later, it's ridiculous. He's got like one button left. He was like, sick. Save me.
He's like, maybe I should just take it. He's like, Steven, maybe I should just take it off. What do you?
Well, leave one button.
Steven's going, no, this is a kid's movie. He's like, so I'll take it off? No.
So just the top half.
Just top. Yeah, I'll leave the pants.
Fine, take it off.
But you're right. This time around, as a kid, I thought this scene was great. But yeah, this time around, I was like, so she just shoved her hand into a giant pile of poop and never really just and then she just kind of acts like normal, like whatever. Yeah. Like,
it's all like falling.
I'd be like holding my hand away from me. The rest, like, this is gross. Like, can I wash this off? But she's like, well, whatever.
She's in like shorts too. It's just like falling down. She's in
a mess. The whole thing was a mess. There's no way she didn't step in it. I mean,
yeah. She must smell horrible the rest of that trip.
Yeah, we never did see her wash her hands.
Later, she gets. I think it's from the rain. She gets all like wet, so she has some sort of like.
It better be raining Purell because
one thing I wanted to talk about, we kind of briefly talked about how I did not remember Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie.
My god, he was this reveal.
Hold on to your butts.
He had a cigarette in his mouth. Oh, it's so good. I felt like it was like a guy that was like, I gotta play a scientist, and then he just like he's like, well, I'm gonna make this look cool. Literally talking with his cigarette in his mouth the whole time.
The whole time as he's saying things like "hold on to your butts," I was thinking they have no idea. The way Samuel L. Jackson talks, he's never gonna say "hold on to your butts." Like, it's funny to hear him say that. He should be like, hold on to your M and F, and I don't know, but
Well, this was before Pulp Fiction too, right? So I don't think we really quite knew Samuel quite yet.
I think this was right after. Was it after Coming to America?
Could be, but I mean, Coming to America is pretty brief.
But as we move on, Newman says he's going to run a debug that will make some systems go offline as he tries to steal some stuff. Because of this, the track cars turn off, and so do some fences. In the car.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah. In the car, Goldblum and Dr. Grant are talking about the misses when everything stops until the ground starts moving. The T-Rex makes his appearance, and the whiny suit guy goes and runs for the toilet. But worse than that, the kids shine a bright light into the Rex's face. So Dr. Grant and Goldblum distract Rex and send him right after the whiny suit guy, and he's the first to get eaten in a pretty iconic way. The doctor escapes the Rex with the kids, but Newman finds himself in the acid spitters territory, and in one of my favorite death scenes from the 90s, gets acid sprayed in the face and eaten in a Jeep. The gang is now separated across the island, and the Rex chases off the Goldblum gang in a real signature moment for the movie. Danny, just take it away on Newman.
Newman, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I am stuck on the fact. Well, yeah, okay, it is Newman. I lied. Yeah. So Newman's like, hey guys, I'm gonna just run some deglitching things. Some of these things might come offline for a minute.
Okay.
We are in a park of dinosaurs.
Right.
Okay. And the only thing holding them in are security fences that run on power. B, okay, so like that's mistake number one. B, we have guests today.
Yeah, kids.
Like, and they're literally in the park. Like, no one thought to be like, hey, Newman, why don't you try this tomorrow? Like, what? They were like, yeah, that sounds good. Some of the power might be going off. We'll be okay. Like, that blew my mind.
It was funny too during that scene. We never see anybody's reaction. It's just like a shot on Newman the whole time. Yeah. And I'm like, he's clearly lying. Are you guys not looking at him? Like, what's happening?
Newman is just the worst in this movie.
But he's also so great.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot he's such a great actor. And like, I don't know if it was the set designer or him, Spielberg, or everybody, like a collaboration, but like the details of his desk and how the background of his computer is like a Playboy bunny from the 60s, and like how everything's just a mess. And like, I just thought it was so brilliant.
It was very well done. And Andy, I want you to add on this. When they tried to guess his password, and it just says, you didn't say the magic word. And he's like,
Yeah, but I was kind of thinking, I'm like, why didn't Hammond just give him more money? Clearly, this guy is like, doing everything at the park, and it's just like, if he's like, if I could get like, $2 extra an hour, it was like, no, and he's like, all right, not thinking like this guy has the power to completely destroy the park, but he's like, nope, you're not getting a cent, buddy.
And I actually kind of agree with Newman, because throughout this movie, Hammond repeatedly says things like, no expense spared. I spent every penny I could.
That's so true.
And then Newman's like, can I get a raise? No.
It's like, I spent, even with the ice cream, he's like, spent no expense.
For ice cream? Like,
you did this with ice. You got like bougie ass ice cream, but you couldn't give Newman like $2 more.
Newman just wanted some insurance.
I'm literally like the only computer programmer on this entire island, and you can't pay me more money. I mean, I'm living in filth at my desk here. Come on. But this is where, Andy, what's with these kids shining a bright light into the dinosaur? This made me so, as a kid, I didn't notice this, but as an adult, I was like, what are you doing, you morons?
Yeah.
There's a dinosaur. Let me shine a bright light in its face. This is ridiculous.
And the amount of time it takes them to shut off the flashlight. I mean, typically it's just like a quick on off. Like, I'm like, come on, kids. They were screaming and being a little more rambunctious than I remembered. I think I probably saw this. I was probably the little boy's age. So I was probably like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm into dinosaurs too. But
he's such a cool kid. I'm just like him. Now I'm like,
oh my God, this kid. Eat him. Rooting for the dinosaurs.
Just think
Yeah, you could have just pointed the like flashlight down too. That wouldn't have been the end of the world.
I thought I didn't actually think they were doing it at the dinosaur. I thought they were doing it at the other car to be like, help us, because the whiny guy left them.
Yeah, that's true.
So they were like almost like a Morse code, like, help us, please. The whiny guy left and went to the bathroom, which honestly, like, that was one of the very few scenes as a child I remembered, because why wouldn't I remember somebody being eaten off the toilet?
Yeah. I could have sworn that was Newman.
Yeah.
What an exit, though.
As soon as it's funny, because that's when he like this scene started happening, and then I see him run to the toilet. I go, "Oh, that's who he is."
But like, honestly, I don't know this actor that well, but like, I don't know that he's been in a lot other things, and I just wonder if he's just like, people are like, I know you, like, and they're like,
yeah.
He's like, and he just has to be like, yeah, I was the guy who gets eaten off the toilet in Jurassic Park.
What is like? I wonder if people like. I wonder if he gets like the part, and he's like reading, he's like, "Oh, this is great! I'm so excited!" And then he sees that part, and he goes, "Oh, I'm gonna get eaten off the toilet." Not even.
Well, that was the audition scene.
It was a Spielberg movie, so I wonder if he was just like, "Oh, that's great!" Like, that's.
It'd be even better if that was his audition. Each guy had to be on the toilet.
Like, good. So we're workshopping this. We might put it in, we might not. Can you just imagine what it would be like on the toilet to be eaten by a T-Rex? Eaten by a
T-Rex on a toilet. Goldblum has one of my favorite lines here that I never caught before. Throughout the movie, he's talking about anything can go wrong because of chaos theory and all this stuff. But when the dinosaur gets out, he says, "I'm right all the time." That was a funny little bit there. One thing that happened really quick though was the kid gets stuck in the tree in the Jeep, and they have to, Dr. Grant has to climb up, get the kid, and bring him down. And this is where I didn't realize this movie watching as a kid. There is such a narrative in this movie about Dr. Grant not wanting kids, but sort of becoming the father figure to these kids, and loving it. And I don't know, that was just something I never really picked up on as a kid. I don't know if there's anything to take from that, but just
the kid
one of those underlying stories that I go, oh.
The kid does have a great line when he finally gets out of the tree, and then he's still in the car, and he says, "We're back in the car again." I was like, come on, kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember the whole like kids narrative of like him like very much not wanting kids, because I think there's certain things that they do put in movies for adults and it just like flies over our heads because we're like, oh, adult stuff, like we just out. But it was really interesting for me, like as an adult now, to be like, well, he clearly is communicating that he doesn't want kids, so maybe you should just accept that or find somebody else. But what was interesting to me was like, this is the little kid who was very annoying, but it was like, it would have been like his perfect kid because all he did was talk about dinosaurs. Yeah. And the fact that it annoyed him, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. Why does this annoy you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. He's like, I don't want to talk to this kid. He wants to learn about dinosaurs. But the other kid is like, I don't really know much about dinosaurs. Like, well, they're going to gut you and eat you alive.
That is true. This kid, all he wants to talk about is the stuff that I love. What a jerk.
What a jerk. Well, they find themselves back in a tree, and Dr. Grant tries to sing with some of the dinosaurs before the kids fall asleep. The next morning, Dr. Grant finds some hatched eggs, and they figure that the frog DNA helped them change sex. Life found a way. Back at the diner, Hammond is eating ice cream and not really concerned about helping his grandkids, and neither is Statler really, as they're still just debating the future of the park. The next day, a debate continues, and Samuel L. Jackson is eventually convinced to shut the system down, and it reboots. Sam Jackson just needs to run over to the circuit breaker by himself really quick, which certainly can't go wrong. Eventually, Statler goes with the safari guy after things don't turn on. Statler makes a run for the shed and turns the power back on just as Dr. Grant and the kids start climbing a fence. The boy gets shocked, and now Statler is dealing with a raptor and Jackson's head. Statler makes a run for it again, and a clever girl gets the safari leader. This is kind of the start of the end, where everything really starts to build up on itself here. I want to go back to the to Dr. Grant and Andy. I'll have you take this, and kind of like we were talking about before. He's like, I feel like you're hiding in the tree, and there's all these dinosaurs. Why are you being loud? Like, shouldn't you be hiding at this point? You don't know what that's going to do with these things.
Yeah, I don't remember him being this absent-minded. Like, I feel like, dude, go do something. He should have been prepared for, like, you're living in a world of dinosaurs. There's got to be a red button you push if anything crazy happens. King Kong comes out and just kills everyone. I mean, I don't know. Something's got to happen. But yeah, the two things I remember most from this movie happened during this part. And one's the water ripple, which I think is so where you see the water kind of shaking. Still today, I think they parodied it in like a Wayne's World movie or something. But that part, and then I remember the kid getting electrocuted. I don't know why I remember that, but I do.
The best
because the guy fakes it first, and I'm like,
I was like, you have been chased by a T-Rex. Like chaos has ensued. Like, you guys are like, literally, it's life or death. You're running for your life. You've seen a guy being eaten by a dinosaur. A T-Rex has screamed in your face aggressively, and he thinks like it's time for like a fun electrocution joke.
I know. That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, you got to traumatize these kids as much as possible.
He's like, oh, like, the one adult that's left. He's like, isn't this great?
You're right. They did just see a guy get eaten in half off of a toilet.
So it's like, maybe not the most appropriate time.
Maybe just get back to the diner with everyone else. But Danny, this is where we find out they did actually find a way. They had eggs, but to a point that was made earlier, like with the poop, I realized this didn't actually matter at all.
What?
That they had kids, like they laid eggs, like nothing.
I think it was just like more like chaos. Like, okay, you thought you can control something that you clearly can't control, which is to Jeff Goldblum's line, "I hate always being right," or something like that.
Yeah.
But to Andy's point, actually, I wanted to go back to the water shaking and that iconic moment, because again, to me, that was the da-da, da-da. Every time we saw the water shake, that was the same tactic, which I love from Jaws, which is like, you hear the music, okay, but in this, it was visual, which was so interesting, and I thought so clever to be like, oh yeah, this thing weighs about 1 million tons. It's going to literally vibrate the entire earth that it walks on. So good.
And that scene with Goldblum too in the Jeep is great, because you see the water and then you just see the dinosaur appears. Like, you're wondering when it's gonna, and then there it is, and then you get the great chase scene.
I love the parallel between the water and the music from Jaws. That is a great catch.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the most iconic things in movies, I feel like if you show the water rippling, everyone gets it.
And then you're scared. And then you're like, oh shit. Yeah. Everybody's like, clenching and it's that whole, like, even like, I think we like kind of breezed over this, but the first time we see the T-Rex, we don't see the T-Rex. We just see the goat, and then you don't see it. And it's just like this whole like, oh my God, where is it? Where is it? It's that not knowing. It's the not seeing the blood and the gore. It's like your imagination's just going wild. And then that one line of, well, where's the goat? And you just see the chain swinging. And then you see the leg, like, just like aggressively, like, and then everything happens. It's like so beautifully done.
Yeah.
This movie too doesn't get enough credit for how it makes you want to learn about dinosaurs, because so many of these dinosaurs I know about because of this, like the acid spitter. It felt like it had its own character. And then of course the T-Rex, which I think when you go into a movie like this, you are expecting, like, that's the one you want to see. And it's kind of, in a lot of ways, the centerpiece bad guy. But of course, later as we get into the raptors, those are the real scary ones. And I like how the safari guy, whose name I don't remember,
I think that's it. Safari guy, how he's like, we're being hunted, and he's like, I can see it, and he's looking, but you remember what
what Dr. Grant said earlier about, no, the one you didn't see is the one that gets you. And he says, clever girl. One of my
Yeah. I really like that guy. I could have done with more of him, actually. I thought he was pretty great.
Yeah, I wanted to see him be like a hero in this and just start like taking on the dinosaurs.
Yeah, he was pretty cool.
Was like he got Laura Dern's back, and like he kind of let her do her thing while he was like hunting them. He lasted a lot longer than I thought he was, especially out with all those raptors.
He, what I was thinking watching this is he had every indication of being a villain in this movie that actually turned out to be a total good guy. Because like you said, he had Statler's back at the end. But the way he carried himself, I think in most 90s movies, he had that almost like, I'm going to stab everyone back in the back or look out for myself kind of, because he seemed mean.
Yeah.
So
he had an accent of some sort.
So in the 90s, that is pretty
mysterious. Yeah.
If we didn't know where you were from, you better watch out.
You sound funny. But there was an interesting point here about the time the little girl got snotted on real hard. Is Dr. Grant threw away his raptor claw? And Andy, I want to ask, do you think there was anything to that? Was he like saying, "Look, I'm maybe letting go of the mystery here"? I felt like there was a kind of a big character piece there by him saying, "I'm throwing away this raptor claw."
Yeah, I think so. I think he was realizing like maybe he doesn't know everything there is to know about dinosaurs. Maybe they are a little crazier than he expected. But it is crazy to me how much they put the kids through the ringer. Like you said, the girl is snotted on, little boy gets electrocuted. Like they got mud on them. Like those kids, man, they really put them through it. Goldblum is just like shirtless in the room, while these kids are all getting
what even happened? Like, what did he get bit? Like, what even happened to him that he was like?
He fell.
He
slipped.
He skinned his knee.
His kid was literally electrocuted
by 10,000 volts, no less.
And Jeff Goldblum's on the couch, like, oh.
not only Jeff Goldblum, but like I said, Hammond is like his grandkids are out there, and he's literally eating ice cream in the diner.
He was stress eating. We've all been there. There was nothing he could have done. Although I did, again, misremembering Mandela effect. I thought that he had gone out into the park himself, but the fact that he never went.
I thought so too.
Can you take care of my grandkids real quick? Bye.
Well, I'm trying to imagine if I was stuck in this park and there's all these dinosaurs, I'm there overnight and all this happens. And then I finally get back and I find my significant other and I'm like, oh my God, I was out there all night. What'd you do? You were able to help in any way? Oh no, we just ate some really expensive ice cream.
It was melting. It was melting.
I was out there.
It would have it was gonna go to waste.
The fact that there were 9 tubs out too.
You tell me where we could get Blue Bunny ice cream.
We had time because you can't take all 9 out at the same time. So he either had a cart that he unloaded this from, or carried each 2 by 2 to the table.
He had so much ice.
He's just like,
He had so much ice cream.
Speaking of when the kid gets electrocuted and he goes to eat all the pie or whatever he's eating, so funny. His hair is all crazy.
Oh, yeah. No, and he has there's green Jello, which I distinctly even remember as a kid being obsessed with Jello, and just he got some green Jello.
Well. Grant brings the annoying kid back to life after he's electrocuted, and they meet up with the others at the diner. The kids get hunted in the kitchen. Iconic scene alert. And the hyper-intelligent super hunter pack of raptors get outsmarted by a couple of dumb kids and a reflection. The nerdy kid starts hacking the computer system and gets everything back online, which tells me maybe Newman didn't really deserve to get paid all that much if a kid could do his job. Some systems are on, and now it's time to get to the chopper. They run through the lobby, and all the dinosaurs try to get them at once, and they end up turning on each other before the humans escape. Dr. Grant says he won't endorse the park. Jeff Goldblum, however, we aren't sure if the park received his endorsement. Andy, actually, Danny, I'll talk to you about this. I want to know why Hammond was so worried about his grandkids when he could just clone new ones.
Ooh, so true. Youch. But there was no mosquitoes found that. Yeah, that was a very interesting part. But you know what? Going to this iconic kitchen scene, which I want to get into. Again, my final Mandela effect moment. I could have sworn there was an entire scene of them going through like the kitchen like shelves, those lower shelves.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember them running around them. I remembered them being in them.
She's in one for a little bit.
Now that you say that, you're right. Almost like
don't you remember like the noise and stuff?
Yeah,
I remember like all the noise that was happening and like them opening different ones, but I think that was just my imagination.
No, it's weird you're saying that because I'm having like you like unlocked a memory that isn't real, which is weird because I swear I remember that too. That's so weird. Because I just saw it and it didn't happen. But now that you said that, I could swear I remember them crawling through almost like John McClane in Die Hard in the vents, but with in the shelves.
Oh, but real quick, can we all talk about when that raptor opens the door with this little raptor claw? He's like, good thing they don't know how to open up doors. And then you see him being like,
You mean this door?
And it's so funny how she like it's just fun how she's like, unless they can open a door, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And it's like, walks through the door.
And it is funny how they're that smart yet full speed into a reflection. Dummy. The ladle though, I totally remember that ladle.
Yeah.
Like even today when I see a ladle, I think of that.
Really?
Not really.
Hard to go to soup places for.
No, not really. Just for the show, I said that.
I'm glad that you said it for the show and then stepped all over it afterwards. But I do think of this kitchen, like the kitchen scene is what I think of when people talk about Jurassic Park. For me, that's the moment. And I thought this scene was a lot longer than it was. I was actually surprised. It kind of just happened really quick. But for me, that's the quintessential Jurassic Park scene. And again, the raptors, these dinosaurs that now it's hard to look back on and say, I feel like the world didn't even know raptors until this movie came out. And then like, it was like, oh my God, these are the greatest dinosaurs of all time.
I was just thinking, were they trying to scare kids? Because again, it's like you could have put, what's his name? Sam Neill's character and Laura Dern, put them in the room with the raptors. Yeah. Instead, again, it's like, now we're gonna throw the kids in there again.
Like, I think it's like the scariest. Like, they're always like one-upping it, and they're like, let's like if they put Laura Dern and Sam Neill, I don't think people would have cared as much.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, like like I don't know if you see a kid die or an adult die, you're like, well, the adults lived more of their life, so
right.
Yeah.
The only exception to that is if it was Jeff Goldblum, I'd be very worried.
And Sam Jackson. If you put Samuel L. Jackson, and Jeff Goldblum in, different story.
But to the kids' point, this is where the movies do this all the time. You're in this horrible place. Dinosaurs are everywhere. People are dying. And the kids just go, okay, we're just going to go run off and do something. And the adults are like, okay, meet us back here in 15 minutes.
How did they separate?
I don't know. They were together, and the kids just like, I'm just gonna go get some ice cream.
Hungry.
Yeah.
I heard there's some ice cream.
Jello. Yeah, go get some Jello. It's
do you imagine they like the scene that was cut from the movie? They're like, we heard there was some ice cream. He's like, fine.
They've had a pretty rough day. Let them go have some ice cream by themselves in this dinosaur infected place.
Yeah, this area is safe. They can't get through.
Yeah, dinosaurs aren't allowed in here, so it's fine.
We put a sign. It says no dinosaurs inside.
Right.
Should be fine.
The ending, I think, is just so well done and so well shot, and probably why it's so iconic as well, of the actual T-Rex in that main lobby now replacing the bones of the old T-Rex as the banners like falling in front of it. Such an iconic way to end the movie. And as we wrap it up, and Danny, you get the last line here, but Andy, just again, I think this is the movie of the 90s, in my opinion. I think if you were to say like what movie represents the 90s, it's this one for all the laughs we had. But any final words on this one?
It was really cool to go back and see this one because this was the original, which led to you got a ride at like Universal Studios now. You got how many sequels they've done at this point, and like just there's so many scenes that are like iconic that you're like, oh, remember when that happened? Remember the guy got eaten off the toilet? So like it's cool to like think that at one time no one knew what this was. And I remember as a kid going into this being like, wow, I'm gonna see dinosaurs. Like it was just a really cool experience. And yeah, I would definitely say it's probably the movie most people remember of the 90s for sure.
Yeah. And Danny, what did you what are your final thoughts as we wrap up this classic?
Definitely a movie of the 90s, or the movie of the 90s, and it surpasses holding up. It doesn't just like, oh yeah, this movie holds up. No, it's like you gotta like really beat this movie, because I honestly haven't seen many movies that do. The amount of fear that it creates and suspense and like thrill and like it's just like everything a movie should have, like fear, comedy, heart. And it's, yeah, I fully love this journey, and I definitely recommend it.
If you haven't seen Jurassic Park yet,
you've never seen the Jurassic Park.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, thank you for watching this show all the way. It's still worth seeing, even though we just spoiled everything for you. Now we like to do a fun little segment real quick where it's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game, where I like to challenge Andy to see if he can take someone from this movie and within 6 movies connect them to Kevin Bacon. Wow. Andy, are you able to do it with Jurassic Park, starting with the T-Rex?
This one worked out way differently than usual. Usually I'm like, while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, this am I kind of doing it like A Beautiful Mind style? This one was weird because
I have so many questions.
Because I'm like this little boy, I know I've seen him in something, and I just looked him up really quick, and I remembered he's also an annoying little boy right around the same time in a movie called The River Wild, which was with Meryl Streep and Kevin Bacon.
Whoa!
There it was. I found it like without.
The River Wild. I forgot all about that movie. Speaking of unlocking memories, that's a movie I never would have remembered again if you didn't say it. And now I'm like, oh yeah, The River Wild.
But he's like the same like little boy. It's like, hey, what you did in Jurassic Park, just do it on the river. And he's like, okay.
That's probably actually how it happened. They probably said we want the kid from Jurassic Park.
I definitely have seen the kid in the opening scene who gets the monologue about raptors. I've seen him as an annoying kid in something else in the 90s.
I feel like he was in Full House.
I was going to say Full House. I think it was.
If there's one show I know. Yeah.
I don't think he was in the Sandlot, but he looks like a Sandlot kid.
He could have been a Sandlot kid, but he wasn't.
No, he did. He did the thing, the lip thing. He was something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was in Michelle's grade. Or maybe it's in Stephanie's grade. I don't know.
No, I think it's Michelle's grade. It was 90s. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I'd believe you if you said. If Andy says someone was in Full House, I believe him.
For sure. And he did the lip thing like Danielle just did, which is funny. Duck lips. They called them like duck lips or something.
Doing it. Like,
they called them like duck lips or something.
I think they did call him Duck Lip.
We're going to review that episode.
And that be next.
Evolution of Full House pun.
Oh my God! Don't tempt me.
This is I at Danielle Dallacco spin-off show.
Evolution of Full House.
Well,
not a bad idea.
Love that show.
Well, Daniel, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being here. And as we sign off, before we get into the very, very end and let everyone know what's coming up next, I'm Jack Farmer. You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. Andy, where can the world find you and what you're working on?
You can find me at Just Andy Rossi or at Dead Body Movie.
And Danny, where can the world find you if they want to check out what you're working on?
You can find me in Andy Rossi's movie Dead Body.
Oh, yeah.
And at Danielle Dallacco.
And that does it for us. Now you can make sure to check us out as we move on through the years, as we go to 1994 next to chat all about Dumb and Dumber with Corey Baker. And then we go to 1995 to talk about Clueless with Ellie Smokler. And in 1996, it's the Robert Rodriguez movie From Dusk Till Dawn with special guest Tim canon. Those will be really fun. That does it for us. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, sharing, subscribing, liking, 5-star reviewing, all that good stuff. And we'll see you all next year.